There was no shortage of points in round 5 of Major League Rugby, but was it enough for the undefeated teams in both the MLR and in our fantasy league to keep their streaks going? Well, one of the players from one of those teams who had a little bit to do with this past high-scoring weekend joins the show as well. The Fantasy Ruckers Show starts right now.
Where rugby and the world of fantasy sports collide. Welcome to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, talking all things rugby from the MLR to leagues around the world. We're on top of it. Headphones on, pads off. This is the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Now, here are your hosts, Ryan Yee, Matt Yee, and Devin Vanderpool.
What's up, everybody? This is episode number 9 of the Fantasy Ruckers Show. Thank you to all of our league members. Thank you to the Fantasy Ruckers community members. And thank you to everyone else who's joining along on this fantasy rugby journey. I think the brown paper bag has made a return to the show. I mean, it took a break one week, and then it has returned. It's been a rough round 5 for Matt. Thanks for everyone for joining us. Matt Yee, Devin Vanderpool, if you guys didn't notice. If you guys are watching, you saw the brown bag. If you guys are listening, you guys didn't see it, but yeah, it has made a return. A rough week, guys, in round 5.
I don't even want to talk about it.
Oh,
Let's get to round 6. I'm done with round 5.
you know, at this rate, we're never even going to talk about any round. I just want to skip to the next one.
Vandy and I are already talking about charities, and it's round 5.
Yeah, well.
We're only a third way through the season. You boys are already struggling a little bit, but it's okay. We're here.
Everybody wins. Okay?
This is what the show is all about here. We're here to help you guys. Even though you guys are the hosts and you guys are supposed to be the ones helping people, I guess it's going to be our league members and myself facilitating that to help you guys. And I guess everyone's going to tag along and watch you guys kind of get out of this hole. And maybe you guys can do a little playoff push with still 2/3 left of the season to go. I don't know. Let's be hopeful here and let's see if you guys can turn things around. I think
let's not get too optimistic.
Come on now. I'm looking for a second
by
dub
taking
here.
off the paper bag, and look where I am now. I'm back in the dumps. Just loving it down at the bottom. Started from the bottom, and we're still here.
I don't want to be the guy here to bust out conspiracies because I don't believe in them. But how does a guy put up 2 points last week to dump on me with 44 the next week?
Well, there are some players that had to do it. That we're gonna break it all down. So yeah, it was a tough round 5 for some guys, as you can tell, but it was also a pretty exciting and fun round 5 for some league members as well. So we're gonna break that all down. So make sure you are following us everywhere. You get your podcast at the Fantasy Ruckers on YouTube. We're there as well. Make sure you throw us a like, give us a follow, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell as well to get that notification to let you know when a new episode drops. There are new episodes coming down every Wednesday morning, giving you guys the latest scoop on fantasy rugby in the MLR and the official Fantasy Ruckers Rugby League. We are in round 5. We're now heading into round 6. It's been fun so far. And a guy that looks like he's been having a lot of fun so far as well. We had him on earlier in the year and before the season started, and he was really pumped up for the season. It looks like he's true to his word, because it looks like he's having a great time there out in New York, playing for Rugby New York. It is time to bring on friend of the show, Andrew Coe. Hey.
Friend of the pod.
Friend of the pod coming on. Before we break down round 5, I mean, we talked about how it was a high scoring round 5. There was no shortage of points anywhere. You had a little bit to do with that, Coe, scoring two tries of your own there, man. How was that match against New England there? It looked like you put a little statement there after getting called back on a try the week before.
Yeah, no, it was fun. There were 3 other Canadian guys playing on New England, so it was nice to see those boys. Foster DeWitt played UBC with him. Josh Larson, Regan O'Gorman, I played age grade with. So that's part of the appeal to MLR, is playing against these guys that I normally play with and I'm buddies with. Plus, there's the Boston-New York rivalry, so not much gets better than that.
Yeah, Boston-New Jersey rivalry.
No comment.
No comment. Can't comment on that.
Drop.
No comment. Coe, I mean, I think the biggest thing for me, man, watching you play this past week is, man, I think we've all gotten to see you for a long time be really successful in the 7 circuit, but seeing you being able to now kind of show your skills here in the 15s realm, it's been a lot of fun to watch. Do you enjoy being back playing 15s? I mean, it's been a while since I think you've been playing, high performance 15s. We've known you went to the Olympics, you represented Canada there with 7s. Feel good to be back there out on the wing, scoring tries there.
Definitely. It's been, the first couple weeks coming back into a 15s environment is, I was like a chicken with my head cut off. I didn't really know where I was doing, what I was going, like what I was doing. But, as the weeks go on, I feel way more comfortable with the style of play that we're playing, with the players that I'm playing with. Similar to Matty knows at UBC, like you get that cohesion going with the team, and it's pretty good.
Yeah, no, it's having played both 7s and 15s, there's definitely differences where, you kind of have to adjust. But I think, from a conditioning standpoint, though, you got to be up there, though. I know from a nuance, like from a game style standpoint, it might take some time to adjust. But man, it looks like even in the 80th minute, you're still flying out there. You're staying. I think you haven't been subbed out once, right? So I think you've been able to survive at least from the conditioning standpoint out there. So I don't think
conditioning's all good there.
Moving from the 14 to
get some Oreos in me. Maybe I can bring that conditioning down. Maybe I get a little bit of leeway.
Yeah, we'll see there. One thing I do want to bring up, but just about your time before I let these boys ask you some questions I know that they have for you. Based on the fun part of you having fun out there in Rugby, New York, I had to show the people this picture here.
Yes.
I got to bring up this picture that we found on Instagram. Dude, album picture, dude. It looks like you're having a damn good time out there, man. This is perfect with Emery and Pago Haini. It sounds like you're fitting right in with the boys there in Rugby, New York.
Yeah, I'm loving the boys. They're unbelievable, but Pago always knows where the camera is. Anytime he's on the field, the guy always knows. I'm sitting in the ruck, and he taps me on the shoulder and goes, "Hey, bud, look up." And I look up. There's the camera, and we just pose for a picture, and look at that. That's a good looking photo. I'm sending that to my mom.
I must say, I think Rugby New York's kit is one of the nicer looking kits in the MLR. So I think, the whole thing there is it's absolutely perfect. So yeah, I would be sending that to mom as well, Co, if I had a picture that looked like that too. So I had to show that to the people. And for those of you who are listening, go hop onto Rugby New York's Instagram page. Nice little picture of Co and the boys there. A nice little album-esque picture that's pretty good. That I think everyone got a good kick out of. But yeah.
Stash too.
Yeah, man.
Oh yeah,
just like yours,
so
dude. Just like yours,
yeah,
man.
hey, well, don't compare the two.
Yeah, because yours is better, right?
No, mine's red. That's the problem.
There we go. But man, Co, like let's just talk about, I think, your experience. I think about a third way through the season. How are you feeling? I know it's like you mentioned, it's a different season than the 7 circuit. Body's holding up. How are you doing now a third way through? Like I said, you scored 3 tries, so you got to be doing something right.
No, it's been good. This is the first time I've been in a week in, week out season since I was playing at UBC, and this level, no offense, Matty, but this level is quite a bit higher than UBC.
Shots fired. No.
But no, it's been a ton of fun. I'm really starting to get my bearings into things. Going into it, I would think that, the travel, like I get to go travel the US. It's going to be so much fun. I'm going to go out in every city. I'm going to party my brains out. And then come down to it, that does not happen. I'm so tired by the end of the day. I could not wait for this home opener, so I didn't have to travel. I could stay in my own bed. So yeah, it's been a ton of fun so far. The crowd's been amazing. The boys have been amazing. I have no ill wills against anything.
I know Matty has something to say about that home opener that he's been meaning to ask you this. We've been talking about this since the match this past weekend.
Yeah, well, first of all, I first want to ask, how is it playing in front of a home New York crowd, and then just to follow that up, which field do you think it is better, the Bill Crothers Secondary School High School turf field with the track around it, or the Hoboken Middle School field with the track around it?
I just want to say our fans are great.
Diplomatic. Hey, you know what? That was a test for you, Ko. I think since episode number 2, you've been diplomatic about this. Matt had to throw in the shot there. I don't know. I'll just leave it at this.
I'm just trying to get some good stuff for the public here. Just trying to get.
I get it.
I'm just saying. I'll just leave it at this. And I think a lot of people had this on their minds. It is very interesting to see
somebody playing tennis in the background.
You stop. It's interesting to see the 2 biggest cities in the MLR have, I guess, the 2 biggest contrasting stadiums. We'll just leave it at that. But it was funny to see, the different areas, because there are some teams that are making some big steps moving forward. But regardless, though,
the thing with New York is you lack a lot of space.
Yeah.
There's no, it's either this or MetLife Stadium. There's not many fields where you can host events like that. So it's either top of the, MetLife or Red Bull or whatever that is, or it's, Hoboken.
Well, the nice thing is you guys packed it. Like, you guys packed the stands right up to the front, and that looks way cooler than LA Coliseum when, there's, I don't know, like, it looks like it's empty, but even though there's, 1,000 or 2,000 people there, whereas I think you guys sold over 1,000 tickets and it looks packed.
Yeah, so the stadium was completely packed. Then there was a balcony overlooking. I don't know if you guys saw a video.
Okay.
I didn't see that.
So
they were so rowdy. It was unbelievable.
I have something to say about the overlooking buildings. I will say this, and I do agree with you, Ko. Having lived in New York, that is the big thing, is the space, and that's a good point, that there really isn't an in-between stadium. And to Matthew's point, it looks way better, definitely from a television product, to fill out a 1,000 person venue than what the Giltini sometimes look like when you're playing at LA Coliseum. Yeah, it's really cool and it's a spectacle to see, but when you're only filling 1,000 seats out of a 90,000 person stadium, it's kind of like a trade-off, you know what I mean, between looking really packed and getting that vibe and getting that excitement, getting that atmosphere versus, the big name venue. It is a point. But I will say about those buildings at that game. So I'm not sure if you have rewatched the broadcast, but they had the sideline reporter. I forget who it was, but she gave a shout out to the crowd that was up there on some of those buildings.
That's where I picked up on it.
She might have went a little step too far, because there was one point where they call her out on the sideline. Like, oh yeah, how's the atmosphere here in Hoboken? And she's like, oh, it's great. These people up on the balcony. It's really giving me Chicago Wrigley Field vibes. And I'm like, okay, all right. I get the good vibes, but I don't know. The Wrigley Field vibe might be pushing it just a little bit. But mind you, that's a good point though. I think it's been interesting to see how all these teams have been navigating these home fields, because it is a challenge in each individual location. Like you mentioned, it's way easier to find venues in Texas where they have sports stadiums everywhere, as opposed to New York, who has a very limited amount of sports stadiums. So it is interesting to see that. But yeah, I mean, you guys are packing out stadiums. Utah is packing out stadiums. It's Dallas a couple of weeks ago. They had a really big crowd out there. So wherever you guys are playing, it seems like you're drawing out a crowd, which is a positive sign to see.
An absolute vibe at most places where we go. Like, especially if rugby's a sport where pretty much, you're having beers, you're having a good time. It's not like soccer where it's very, you clash heads with opposing fans. Like, everyone's just trying to enjoy the sport, enjoy the spectacle, have a couple beers, get a little loose, yell some things. It's all good.
Sounds like a darts match.
Pretty much.
Well, I think
I'm not even joking. Match is the best.
I think also though, guys, that it's also, that's how we're going to draw more fans. I mean, you're looking at a lot of these people, when they go in the crowd. I know AG does a really good job at this. I forget who is their like in-house entertainment guy. I think it's like Noxie or something, where I don't know if you've seen their broadcast, but he's a really wacky dude that goes in the crowds and he interviews the fans. And you notice that a lot of these fans are not necessarily like rugby fans. They're just there for the experience of, like you're saying, Co, like going out, drinking beers, watching rugby, being on the sideline and seeing, you're right there. It's a different type of atmosphere than going to a different type of professional game. So it's about, I think, making the entire experience kind of enjoyable for both the casual rugby fan, the new rugby fan, and the experienced rugby fan. So I think the MLR, at least in that standpoint, has done a pretty good job. But wrapping up, I guess, the discussion on stadiums, we'll move on to kind of how you feel the MLR has been going in general, with you've been seeing the leagues, Co, and also I guess from a fantasy perspective too. But out of the stadiums that you've played at, now that you've ended your road stretch here and returned home this past week, what's been the coolest stadium to play at so far? I forget where have you been? You've been in Houston. You've been
Houston, Atlanta, Dallas.
Okay, so out of
and then
those
we had a
three,
preseason game in Austin as well.
Atlanta looks pretty cool. Houston looks cool. I mean, they all have their own little unique little touches, I feel like.
Yeah, that's the thing. They were all amazing. Houston was great because it's their own stadium. Everything was branded. It looked awesome. But it was an absolute wind tunnel there, so it wasn't that fun of a game to play in or to watch.
We noticed.
Atlanta, Atlanta was awesome because it was kind of in this sunken valley, and the fans were great. They were heckling, they were yelling out some stuff that I can't repeat on air, and that's awesome to see, like, the fans get into it. And then Dallas play at the old Texas Rangers baseball stadium. So that was unbelievably cool, and they put on such a great show, especially for a first-year team. They had everything just dialed and in place. Their aftermatch food was the best aftermatch.
That's what matters, right?
That's the best part about it.
God. We finish up, go upstairs into the clubhouse. They hand you a beer ticket, so you go get a beer, and then it's a long line. You got brisket, you got mac and cheese, you got butter buns, you got nachos, you got pulled chicken, you got cookies. Oh my God.
That's just that southern, the southern hospitality, man. They're just treating you well, dude.
Unbelievable. They put on a good show in Dallas.
So that's cool, man. I don't know. It's cool to see the insight of how they kind of treat the players each different game. But hey, that's good to hear, man. I'm glad to hear that you're getting fed well, man. Maybe that's why you're out there doing so well, right? Because you're eating the Texas
only
brisket
reason why I play.
Yeah, exactly. For the food, the post-match beer tickets and the brisket. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah. So fantasy related question. Now that we're moving off of stadiums a little, have you thought at all while you're playing, like, maybe scoring a try and going like, oh yeah, that's 5 points for rugby morning, or that's 5 points for me in the books for fantasy kind of thing? Like, has that even crossed your mind now that in the back of your head that somebody's keeping score, like Ryan's going to be tallying these points up?
Not really, no. If I'm being honest,
we don't mean anything. It doesn't matter.
Not in the game. But
I know.
It was yesterday or something. I was thinking like, oh, I scored from half on one of mine or something like that. I'm like, that's a decent amount of points for rugby morning. But honestly, I don't want to. I can't remember what all the points were for and how you tally everything up. So if you want to give me a recap, so maybe next week I can focus on some, making more tackles.
Make sure that what
we'll
you're
just
doing.
Put it this way, you balled out.
Yeah, you did really well. I mean, I will say, man, I completely get why during a game when you're running, when you were catching that Sam Windsor kick, you weren't really thinking about, oh crap, this is going to be 5 fantasy points. I better catch this ball.
If you would have said yes,
during that whole kick, all I was thinking was stay on side. Because last week I was like, I can't have it happen twice in a row.
But I will say, man, it has been cool to see your interest in, because you shot me text. Oh man, like how are the points working out and all these things, and it's cool to see that there is interest in there. Because I think if you're interested, why not other MLR players too can get interested in as well, and fans too. It's cool to have that kind of engagement from a player that actually plays within the league. So it is pretty sweet. But yeah, man, let's talk about a fantasy perspective since Matthew has brought it up. Let's move on to there. If you had to guess, okay, Co, if you had to guess where you sit in the rankings right now out of every single player. So let me tell you, I've had to stat out every single player basically that has suited up, which is freaking nuts. But I've statted out every single player who's played a single minute in this league, and that is over 416 players.
Holy
That's how many players have suited up for a team in the MLR this season so far. Out of those players, and now after this past week's performance, where do you think you sit in these rankings? Total points.
Total points.
If you don't have to guess exact, give me a range. Like, do you think you're in the
think
top
I'm
100,
hopefully
top 50?
Top 50 would be sweet.
Oh, you're a bit high there, bud.
Too high?
Bit hot? You think?
You can even shorten that down. Maybe go
I don't
top
know, man.
25.
I think, man, you need to have a little bit more confidence, man. I don't know.
I
Two
don't know.
tries this
I just
past
told you
week.
I'm not entirely sure what the point systems are. Try, scored, from distance.
I
not
don't
a
know,
kicker.
man. I think you got to be a little more. But here, let me reveal to the people.
Okay.
I think this, and Vandy and Matt, you guys got to help me out here. I think this deserves a little round of applause, because since I think the last time we spoke to you, Co, was before the season starts. So there are high hopes for you heading into this season. We were trying to figure out who's going to draft you and all this stuff. And then your first show back in your return, Co, you break the top 10. You're number 10. Let's go. Let's go. Andrew Co, number 10 on the season with 27.9 fantasy points so far. That's pretty good, man.
Hey, no
that's
surprise
not
there.
too bad. You are the second or third lowest drafted player out of the top 10.
Am I really?
Yeah,
You're a
so
sleeper.
ahead of you
what round
is
did I go in?
you went in the 12th round. You were the sixth pick in the 12th round. And of course you were picked by Rugby Morning.
Yeah, I couldn't take the pressure personally to pick a celebration and get
He did well.
suspended,
So this was the funny thing.
Yeah.
This was the funny thing, Co, was that when I texted you last week, I'm like, hey man, like, can you come on the show? And fair enough. I would allow any person to miss a show if they're going to go see a Raptors game, especially when it's against the Nets. And I believe, did they get the dub? I can't remember.
Oh,
Regardless,
yeah, they crushed them.
Big dub against the Nets. But regardless, on that night, the same night we were recording, we got Rugby Morning on the show, and I wanted to surprise him and bring you on at the same time. But unfortunately, we weren't able to do that. But he was saying that he was determined to draft you. He went into the draft saying it wasn't a matter of like if he was going to draft you, it was a matter of when he was going to draft you. So
I messaged Ryan literally that pick, and I'm like, I'm taking Co here.
Yeah, and then Rugby Morning picked it. So you went 12th round, 6th pick, and you're sitting at number 10, man. You're only sitting behind. So Bowden, I mean, you saw him firsthand this past week. Bowden Waka, he's absolutely crushing it this season so far.
Lights out.
Dude, he's at 68 total fantasy points. The next player is Riekert Hadding of Seattle. They're 8-man there, 37.5 fantasy points. So like the 30-point drop from Bowden Waka to the next guy, just because
That's
like this past week he put up 30 points, man. He scored 3 tries. I mean, you knew. I don't need to repeat it to you, but
I've seen the film. I've seen the film.
He got front row seats for it, Ryan.
But so behind you, so just ahead of you, so Waka's number 1, Riekert Hadding is number 2. Your teammate Ed Fido is still riding off of that big performance, I believe, in round 2. He's there at number 3, and then we got Connor Mooneyham, AJ Alatimu, Joe Peterson, Julian Dominguez, Carl Meyer, and then Yaquin de la Vega Mendia, and then you. So you're in the top 10 though, man. That's good stuff, dude.
I would have thought it would have been straight kickers would be top 10.
I would say
you could be top 5 if you start putting your foot on the boot. Just
there we go.
So in Dallas, Sam went off, then Jack started cramping up when he scored, and I'm looking around, I'm thinking, this could be my moment here.
Oh no.
But Andy Ellis just grabbed the ball and started lining it up, and who am I to just be like, nah, Andy, listen, buddy, I got it.
Oh man, that would have been, I would have loved that. You should have been, let me take this. I got this.
Yeah, I got this one.
Ridiculous.
I got this one all black. I got it.
Yeah, no kidding, right? That's hilarious. But no, in the top 10, let me see here. 5 of the top 10 are kickers. So kind of an even balance there. So interesting enough. But hey, you'll get to see your name there on that list when that gets released later this week, man. So there we go. That's pretty good stuff. We'll hopefully you keep on riding up the ranks there. But pretty impressive, number 10, man. Not too shabby. Not too shabby. Yeah. So before we let you go here, Co, though, I do want to get your opinion, and I think Matt has some other questions to add here as well. Your experience, I think, with playing with some of these really, high performance. I mean, you mentioned Andy Ellis, you mentioned Sam Windsor, who's had obviously a lot of experience in the MLR and beyond and things like that. Andy Ellis overseas as well, with just all of the accolades that he has. Now we talked about it at the beginning in episode 2 when we talked to you before the start of the season about your conversation with these guys and how helpful they've been. But now that you've been, I guess, a third way through the season, building that bond with them, especially those guys that have so much rugby experience, has it been a cool experience you doing that? I mean, it looks like you have a great bond with some of them on the field already. I mean, I see you doing some coordinated try celebrations. I see Sam Windsor now. He's spotting you, man. That's 2 weeks in a row where he's trying to dodge you from that spot. So it seems like you guys got the chemistry going, and it seems like they've, in a way, seems like taking you under your wing, you still being a young guy and them having that type of experience.
Yeah, I'm really trying to learn as much as I can from all these guys, like Andy, Sam, like Jace Emery, who's an unbelievable player. Brendan O'Connor was Blues Player of the Year. He's played a ton of Super Rugby. All these guys are Ed Fidau, recognizable names in rugby, and I'm just trying to learn as much as I can from them and definitely listen whenever they're talking. But I know Matt as the Sam Windsor owner. He has a request, I think, for you, Co, that he'd like for you and him to kind of partner up here.
Yeah, just keep letting him kick you cross field kick tries. Maybe you have some set piece plays between you two. Have him set you up, and maybe
how often
ask
you practicing that
to run a support line or two when you break the line, because I've been noticing he just kind of dishes it off and drops back and just enjoys watching you boys go to work. So.
As all good experienced players do. It's funny thing, Ryan. I think it was I forget whether it was against Houston or whether it was against Austin. I went up to it and I'm like, anytime you want a crossfield kick, I'm there. I said something like that. We haven't practiced it in practice once in the games. In the games, it just worked out that way.
That's all he needed. He just needed you to give him the green light. Hey, I'm there for you. I'll be running as fast as I can.
He just expects you to know the green light.
Even if I'm offside a couple times, I'm gonna be running. I'll be there for you. Don't worry. So
there's gonna be one time where he's just gonna throw a crossfield kick in, and I'm gonna be nowhere near it, and he's just be like, "What's going on?"
Shoots you those daggers across the field.
Yeah, exactly.
They tell you to run faster.
That's funny. But no, I must say, Co, it's been a blast to watch you kind of play. You guys have been having a terrific season so far. Tough result against New England. I do think that you guys were the better squad out there. Just some lucky breaks I feel like that New England had that just kind of pushed them over the edge there, especially kind of towards the later part of the game. I mean, some of those walk-up tries was just right place, right time, you know what I mean? And just something that, off of mistakes, those things can happen. But it seems like Rugby New York seems like a threat to be reckoned with this season, man. So it's been a blast watching you. You're doing something right now, breaking the top 10 here. I know that's the biggest takeaway out of this whole thing. Is just like, all right, top 10 off the checklist. Now it's top 5. I know
way more important to me than actually winning rugby games.
Yeah.
I need to be in the top 10.
There we go.
Fantasy Ruckers.
Hey, they're pretty correlated. You know what I mean? If you're scoring tries, you're winning rugby games.
There we go.
See, there we go.
Well,
the Fantasy Ruckers are doing well, Co. That means Rugby New York is doing well. So, it's just, it's a trade-off there. We'll take it. Well, your successes are our successes. So I love it. But yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun. Keep on doing you, man. We wish you the best for the rest of the season. And hopefully we can have you on again here and do another little check-in maybe halfway through the season to see how things are going and see your name rise through the fantasy ranks as the season goes on here, man. But we appreciate you taking the time. And I will say, I need to add this at the end here before you go. Rugby Morning is also very appreciative of what you've done, being able to set some pretty historic weeks for him these past couple of weeks. So a lot of his success too, I guess, is based off of your success. So everyone feeding off the Co bandwagon, man. The top 10
I
Co
eat,
bandwagon.
all my dogs eat.
There we go.
There we go. I love it. So keep that mindset up. I'm sure all the boys here will appreciate it, man. But thanks, Co. Appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon, dude.
Hey, good luck against San Diego this weekend. And don't let Mike Smith bully you.
Never. That guy couldn't bully a fly.
There we go. All right. See you, Co, man.
See ya.
Yeah, man.
All right. Well, that was Andrew Coe, Rugby New York's Andrew Coe, winger, coming off of a huge round 5 performance, 2 tries. Man, it's fine. I didn't even check that top rankings list and look for his name. That was all live. I cannot believe that he's number 10, man.
I know. I seen it when you said it to me earlier today. I'm like, no shit.
Man, I'm just, if we get him on again, let's just see how long it takes for me to maybe get something slip out of him. Just gonna slip a few questions in there, see how long it takes to get him to slip up.
I'm sure Rugby New York's PR is really appreciative of that too. You're just, keeping him on his toes, making sure he stays diplomatic, make sure he knows what the right answers say, because it doesn't seem like he's gonna break a budge. But
hey, Rugby New Jersey's been training him well.
we know the real thoughts on that, at least from our perspective of New York playing in New Jersey and the field they're playing at. It's just crazy to me that you got LA playing at the Coliseum and then you got Rugby New York playing at a high school stadium. But we'll move on from that. I think that is all clear. But yeah, thank you again for Andrew Coe for coming on the show, friend of the show. We'll hopefully have him on in episodes to come to kind of break down everything that's happening in MLR from a player perspective, because I think it's really cool to hear the player perspective and their thoughts on fantasy rugby. Yes,
sir.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move
news.
Yeah, let's take it to that news. Let's talk about the latest news and notes here in fantasy rugby, specifically in the MLR quickly as we move on to a round 5 recap. Some big news here, guys. Big thing here, I think, to get the MLR growing is that the MLR has announced that they're creating or they have a grassroots development incentives offer. And that might be a whole bunch of mumbo jumbo to you guys that are listening, and to both Vandy and Matt who may not understand what that is. But apparently, if I am understanding this correctly, the MLR is going to award MLR teams salary cap allocations based off of the youth development programs that they're able to establish within their teams. So kind of cool, kind of being able to grow the sport of rugby and their player pool locally, and kind of have an incentive to do that will benefit them on the pitch from a professional standpoint. So I think that's one way that you're going to grow the sport, especially Major League Rugby, is getting younger people involved. Matt, you've had experience in at least the youth development in Canada. You know how that has gone. It's cool to see that the U.S. is kind of following suit as well, because I know that's been a struggle for the past few years.
Yeah, grassroots is where it starts.
Yeah, all from the youngins. Got to get the youngins into it, and then we'll see it. And it is never too late to start. I mean, you can get Vandy. We can get Vandy suited up and make him become a flanker or something. He looks like he could do it, right?
No, I think he's
already got the beer drinking down. He's got the mustache down. You're basically like 2/3 of the way there, man. We just got to just get you on the pitch and get you sprinting a little bit, and we'll be good to go. You'll be suited up.
I find one problem in that sentence.
What's the problem?
Sprinting.
I don't know. Maybe
Sprint 2 is the fridge for another beer.
There we go. Another news here: Utah announcing that the attendance of this past round 5 game against Dallas was over 3,600 people. That is the largest crowd of the 2022 MLR season so far. I mean, almost 4,000 people, guys. That's really positive to see with the growth of this league. I don't think could have imagined that there were going to be that many people, 4 years ago when the league first started. So to see 4,000 people, lining up and buying tickets to see your boys, Vandy, is pretty reassuring to see.
I mean, it's just part of it.
There we go.
Yeah, setting records over there.
There we go. And then last thing here, guys, some pretty cool, not really a fantasy relevant news and note, but just a cool little tidbit from round 5. Once again, this is a little fun fact that was posted on the MLR Reddit page by u/Steelium, who's been providing us great facts all season long so far. Apparently this past week, guys, the oldest and youngest players suited up for the MLR this past week. We had RNY, Oreen Ai, I think is how you pronounce it. 42 years, 5 months, and 10 days. He was a 7-star man. He suited up for the Giltinis. I believe that was like a little last-minute sub decision, because I know that in our league we had to make some. I know some LA Giltini owners had to make some last-minute league adjustments there to get that in. But he. Yeah, I had 42 years and 5 months and 10 days. That's pretty old. And then coincidentally, in that same game, Kahanu Koi made his debut for the Giltinas as well at only 18 years, 8 months, and 15 days. He's the youngest to suit up in MLR history. So that's what, a whopping 24 years, guys, almost between those two players playing the same match.
The Giltinis are more interested in setting these little records and winning games. So
there we go. You know what? That's a perfect segue to start talking about this round 5, because
I got one more news and notes just on my end. I've started watching the games on mute. So that's my news for the MLR community.
Oh my God.
The games are now going on mute.
Get on.
You told me before show that this was gonna be toxic, and that's the start. You had to be diplomatic when
Cole was on,
but this is where it begins. But I will say, this is my addition to that, because today I was really like going through the games, and I did not have it on mute. I think for me, the biggest thing is that sometimes the play-by-play announcer is describing things that I don't really need to know. Like, he'll say like, "Oh, the Giltinis are really pushing hard right now." It's like, well, yeah, obviously. Like, what do you think they're gonna do? Like, they're not gonna try to go in. Like, tell me where the ball is. Tell me who's getting it. Tell me. But just little tidbits like that. I'm just like, okay, like, cool. Like,
that only works when it's a hot take the other way. You know, like the Giltinis just laying on their back, letting them do what they want.
Yeah, it's true.
On that note, though, I'm like, sometimes I'm thinking about like Vandy, you watching and thinking about like, you're watching it I mean, we're 5 rounds in, so you're not fully relying, but like semi relying on the commentators to kind of help you understand the flow of the game and process some of the things that are happening. And then I listen to them say something completely wrong, and I'm like, man, like, if you're trying to educate the new people, but they don't know any better to look at this as something that's incorrect, they'll just seeing it as, okay, like, yeah, like that's what it was.
Well, it was one game, I think it was the Seattle game, and it was a weird try was scored. It looked like it was a knock on, and then it like the guy kind of fumbled it, but he picked up and ran it in. And the announcer just starts describing it before anything even happened. And then when the ref inevitably said it was a try, all of a sudden he's scrambling to bring it all back in instead of just letting it play out and be like, what a beautiful play here. It looked like, it looked like a knock on, but I'm assuming it was a fumble here because the play continued. And he just, the whole time the play was developing, he's just trying to eat his words. It's like, man, just shut up and let it play out.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, hey, getting better every week. I mean, I think we've said our piece, and I think all of our listeners know where we stand with all that. So hopefully,
well, even
it gets better
fantasy,
every week.
Even the the MLR, like on Reddit there, I spent a little bit of time creeping that, and even there, like the production is just. They even said like the announcing has been terrible this year, noticeably bad.
Yeah, well, hopefully it changes, because I mean, I think that's just as important as the product on the field is how you kind of present that product to attract new fans. So hopefully it kind of gets better there. But moving on to kind of a fantasy perspective, guys, as we push along here to round 5, let's start to break down some of these matches and the fantasy implications that came along with them. Like we said, some pretty high scoring matches here. It led to some pretty high scoring fantasy matchups. I think we've come to the realization that when you got a lot of points being scored in in these MLR games, you're going to have a lot of points scored in our fantasy matchups as well, because of how reliant we seem to be on try scoring. So that was, I think, represented once again in round 5 here in our matchup. So let's start breaking down through these games here and talk about how that kind of affected our kind of fantasy landscape. So let's start with the Seattle Seawolves taking on the NOLA Gold. NOLA coming away with a big W here. It was a back and forth match between these two teams. Really, really exciting. 25-24, NOLA Gold ended up coming out on top, which was a big win for New Orleans. Guys, your thoughts kind of about this match before I reveal who are the top performers from this game were.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of penalties kicked. And it's evident here, and Ryan will get into it, but Alatimu and Mayer both putting up a lot of points this week, just because of the sheer amount of penalties that the Seawolves and Gold decided to go for.
Yeah. You know what? It was actually really cool watching Nola's defense at the end there, because they broke through, and I don't know the gentleman's name, but he broke through and he's trying to wrestle the ball, and the one NOLA guy just kind of grabbed him, fell to the ground, and he couldn't plant the ball in the end zone to actually get the try. And then they stood him up, he couldn't put it in. A penalty led to the game over, and it's just like, wow, man, that's just heart. It was a guy who performed, like, got a penalty, realized if they score here, it's me on the line, and he made the play. It was great to watch.
Oh yeah, that was a tight game.
Those are the most fun when you have it in the 80th minute and the last play
grinding
of the game.
your teeth, just
you gotta love it. That's sports,
when
man.
It's crunch time. Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and when you're sitting on the edge of your seat and waiting for that score to happen or not happen in that case. But top fantasy performers, guys, in round 5 for both this NOLA Seattle game. Matt, you mentioned it. Carl Meyer, he came in as the top performer. Big kicks there, 11 total fantasy points. Riekert Hadding keeps on keeping on. He's had the past 3 out of 4 weeks, man. He's gone above 5 fantasy points. This past week, 9.6 fantasy points. He continues to do great things. He's number 2 on the season.
What a beast on that try too.
Honestly,
gosh, beating the back row.
The speed, man, on that try, dude. Like, he just picked it up and just gone. Just no one was catching him. Found the gap, and he was no one was catching him. When you have that type of speed on the back row, it's tough. He made backs look slow on that one, which was crazy. Sure. AJ Alatimu, Matt, you mentioned he had 9.5 fantasy points, and then to round it out, Ross Neal, he came in with 7.1, and then Moni Tongoiha.
Nice.
That was a good one.
That Ross Neal.
Someone's got to get all.
Yeah, that Ross Neal try was disgusting. Actually, that was filthy.
Yeah, so 6.5 fantasy points for Monty there as well. So pretty fun back and forth match. Some decent amount of fantasy points there, and from a fantasy perspective, pretty decent. What's it called?
Showing
a contribution to the fantasy points, but I think it was an even more fun match to watch as well.
It was.
Let's move on here to your boys, Vandy. I know you have something to say about this. Utah Warriors coming into this match against the Dallas Jackals without a win, coming off the bye, looking to turn things around. Vandy comes on episode 8 last week, gives his boys a preach, gives him the pump-up speech, and it seemed to have worked because they come out on top of the Dallas Jackals 69-22.
Most points you've ever scored, thanks to the new fan.
There we go. Is it all to you? On a percentage on 0 to 100%, how much of that was you? How much of that?
Okay. I don't want to take too much credit, but at least 65.
Oh, come on. I think you got to give yourself a little bit more credit than that, dude. I don't know. That speech was pretty good after episode 8. But no, I'm sure it was Vandy. Even outside of a fantasy perspective, this is the first match that you were able to watch from start to finish. Your boys just absolutely dominating a match. How was it to watch that as a fan and seeing your boys have so much fun out there? Because it seemed like that's what they were doing. At one point, it was just them scoring tries, and it was just them just having fun with it. Was it a fun match to watch for you?
Oh yeah, obviously watching any team put up that many points, and then when it's your own guys, of course you love to watch it. But it's kind of cool because it's a great scenario in this game where you see guys on the board like Clive and Laubser and Cruz, and these guys, they had a great game in their own right. But then, in my opinion, Saunders. That man was the player of the game. Dead on player of the game. That guy owned it the whole time.
You know what? You bring up Niles Saunders. I'm starting to think I'm the only honorable person in this league. You know why? Let me give you a story, everybody.
You're gutless.
All right?
Trading to
All
me.
right. I try to put in Niles Saunders for Andy Ellis right before kickoff. I didn't realize that kickoff was at 2 Mountain Standard Time or whatever the heck time zone that is. All right. I said, oh, wait, Commissioner Ryan, I can't make that change because I did it 6 minutes too late. I'm starting to think that all you guys out there are making changes after kickoff.
Hey now,
sending it to Ryan.
You cannot blame.
What he wants to bring up? Hey Ryan, he wants to bring up conspiracies.
Well, that's
what
what I'm saying.
Last week puts up 2, puts up 44 against me. You want to talk conspiracies?
If I put Niles Saunders in, I win my week. But anyways, regardless, that's why I'm so sour about it. And the DC Jackals bamboozled me, or the Dallas Jackals bamboozled me. I just got hit from both ends, and
I'll take my loss with honor. I just suck.
Wow. Is that yeah, I mean, Matt, come on, man. Like, you can't be blaming your shortcomings on the people that are just trying to play this fantasy league and have a good time. I don't know, man. I will say, to your credit, Matt, to your credit, you did do the honorable thing. I didn't even realize that the game hadn't started yet. And you did say,
hey, I was this close to not doing it, boys.
You're not close.
I'm not peddling dogs.
I'm not too sure how much of a difference it would have made. Would it have given you enough?
Not me the dub.
Pretty close. It would have been pretty. It would have been.
But then
pretty,
if you had his bench
close.
points, what are we talking here?
Hey, whatever. Regardless,
we'll
I messed up. I should have started Niles Saunders. You're right, Vandy. He looks good. He's a beast.
He looks great.
And I mean, Utah. I think we all knew that they're gonna put it to the Jackals, and the Jackals set piece, which I thought was gonna be good, is struggling against two teams in a row. So.
Well, I guess that's the big question is, yes, I think it's exciting, Vandy, that you guys put up like the most points in MLR history on a team. But I think that is a good point, Matt, as well, that it was up against the Dallas Jackals.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not too sure how much you're going to weigh. Is it the Utah Warriors having a really, really good match here, or how much of it is just Dallas Jackals just really trying to figure themselves out, being a brand new team in the MLR, them having those coaching complications earlier in the season. They looked good one match, but then since then really hasn't looked that great.
Well, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said it looked like they were having fun. It looked like they were running around having their own way. And generally when that happens, it's the other team didn't show up. More often than not, it's the other team didn't show up. And at the end of the day, they still were able to put up 20 points. And I think, what was it? The last probably 20 minutes, they just started racking it on. And it was honestly poor defense when the game became interesting.
Yeah. No, it was definitely, and big players here. Mike Teo, 14.7 points. Maika Cruz, 19.3. Yeah, Mike Teo finally coming through with a big performance there. He was drafted number 1 overall heading into this season. He finally pays off a little bit for lads on tour there. Wasn't enough to get them the win, but it was a big performance. Niles Saunders, 14.7 fantasy points. Just did the quick math there, Matt. Wouldn't have been enough for you to win the week, but it would have definitely put you within striking distance of that. And then some other.
If you put that -5 you owe me for the other team.
-50, yeah. And then we have Cliven Laubser, 9.5 fantasy points. And Colson Warner, 6.9 fantasy points. And then from the Dallas Jackals side, there was really only one player. It was Ned Hodson and Eric Naposki, 13.7 fantasy points and 8.5 respectively for Hodson and Naposki. So that was there on the Dallas Jackals and Utah standpoint. But yeah, just a beating overall that paid dividends for the people who had Utah Warriors stocks. I mentioned it in a tweet on the Fantasy Ruckers. The people who had Utah Warriors players were quite happy after this weekend, after we saw a big performance from
hey Jackals,
from all those people.
I feel for you. I empathize with you. I'm taking beatings every week here.
Yeah, there we go. Are you our league's Dallas Jackals? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I've it's my first year in rugby, and
I am not
the
the
Dallas Jackals.
There we go. There we go. Well, let's move on to this next match here. The Rugby Atlanta squad taking on the Houston SaberCats. Atlanta coming out big here, 29-22 in a tight matchup. It was competitive at the start, but it really looked like Atlanta started to dominate later through the match. They're starting to kind of take some form here, how they looked in that finals towards the end of last season. Their set piece really taking form.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
I mean, Marco Jans van Rensburg, he was the big benefactor of the set piece this past week. Rugby Atlanta set piece picking up 5 fantasy points. Jans van Rensburg getting 19.5, largely due to those lineouts close in.
Yeah.
Guys, Rugby Atlanta, I think they might be a squad to look at for some of those forwards and for the set piece plays there, because that's what they looked to be going towards. At least that's what I took away from this match against the SaberCats.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough not to take that away when Van Rensburg is I think, what is it, 2 out of the 3 tries were from the back of a maul. From my memory, that's like easy. That's easy 2 try assists for the set piece. But the other thing is, I thought I think I said last week that this was the week that we were going to see whether Houston was the real deal or not. And maybe we're seeing Houston's old ways kind of come back in. They're coming back to earth.
I still think they had a pretty good game, though.
Yeah. I mean, they stayed close. It definitely wasn't anything like the Dallas Jackals game, but it was. I was disappointed from obviously Dyer, because I have him, but it looked like that they were struggling to get things going in from that back line. Yeah.
So other big performers from there: David Coates getting 9.8 fantasy points. Dylan Smith off of that I guess knock-on intercepted pass in the first minute of the game. He was able to get 7 points there. And then you got Heaton and Boyer picking up some tries there as well. Let's move on. This is the match that I want to probably spend the most time on, guys, is the Big Gilgronis versus Giltinis match. I don't know what you want to call it, but are they the Gilchrist cousins? Like, when these guys meet up, like, what are we calling this cut, Matt? What are
Andrew Gilchrist's sons.
The Andrew Gilchrist sons. Who's the favorite son cup? Is that what we're calling this? That's what this is?
No, it's who's adopted cup.
Who's adopted? There we go. All right. So whenever the Gilgronis and Giltinis meet, that's what we're going with. But it was an interesting match, and I think for me at least, it brought up even more concern about this Giltini squad than it did for me providing reassurances for this Gilgroni squad. And I'll explain what that means, but let me get your initial guys' reactions about this match and how this affects your confidence of this undefeated Gilgronis team versus this former championship Giltinis team that seems to be in all sorts of not in good form these past few weeks.
Well, the one thing for me, I kind of argue, I guess, that it didn't look so good for the Gilgronis in the one sense of, even though games the Giltinis lost, they still seem to dominate on possession. They still seem to bully teams, and whether it be a bad penalty or a mix-up or what have you, they wouldn't get points off it. But this game, it didn't feel like they really dominated any part of it.
Yep.
Even when we. Or I can't remember what game it was, but no points were scored up until the 35th minute or something. And it wasn't because the Giltinis were playing bad. It's just pure domination, couldn't put in the points. But this one, it just didn't seem like they were even in it.
Yeah. I mean, I'll cut them some slack as someone who's been pretty critical of the Giltinis from the start. I'll cut them some slack because it's tough bringing in a 10, right before the match. Sometimes he may not know some of the set piece plays or the timing isn't just right. And I think that was clearly evident through the match, and their timing just wasn't down. And even though he was, I think, one of the top point scorers for their team in fantasy wise, it's tough. It's tough when you make last minute changes like that to Ryberg and Luke Burden to come out.
But I think the big thing was the Gilgronis put up I think it was 13 penalties that game. And the Giltinis couldn't do anything with those penalties. I mean, 13 penalties. You have no right winning a game when you do 13 penalties.
And that I think is the biggest takeaway for me, Vanny, and I'm glad you brought that up, is because I think all of that. I think for the Guiltinis, they weren't able to bring. It didn't seem like they were able to get anything cohesive put together. It seemed everything was very fragmented. They weren't able to build up the phases in any way. When they were able to do that, or when they were an attacking threat within the 22 or something would happen where they would drop the ball or some penalty would happen. So from that standpoint, I'm worried about the Guiltinis in that sense. But I think, Matt, to your point, they're dealing with a whole bunch of injuries. This is definitely not the same lineup that we saw from last season. So I think there is a little bit of slack we do have to cut with this squad, even though we're still five rounds in. I know, I mean, they were the team that people drafted the most players from, and I don't think any of them outside of maybe Harrison Goddard early and maybe Angus Cottrell early are the only ones that have really paid off in any way. Every other single Guiltinis player has not paid or at least have been worth the draft spot that they were taken from, at least up to this point. There's still a long season to go.
Can confirm.
But I mean, there is a little bit of slack there, and there is some context to it where they are dealing with injury, and I think this is not the full form Guiltinis team that we're going to see.
It was the worst match. It was the worst match for this to happen against a Gilgroni side that's one in form, hasn't lost a game yet, and fantasy wise, these Gilgronis are a team that you want to pick up players from. Moody-Ham, Dominguez, Lurens, McGee, all these guys are always in the top, top 40 of every week. As long as Gilgronis keep winning, those guys are going to keep winning too.
Yeah. Well, and then now I'm glad that you brought the Gilgronis up, is because I don't know if this is like a hot take anyway, because I think a lot of people do believe that this Gilgroni squad is the real thing. Starting this season now undefeated, 5-0, taking on some pretty tough opponents. I don't know, man. I'm still not sold. Yes, they're undefeated, but to Vandy's point, they make a whole bunch of mistakes early in the matches, and they were losing. I mean, it was 9-3 or 9-0 at halftime. They make early mistakes, and I think a team that is full strength, that knows how to cap, like a Rugby Atlanta team, a Rugby New York team, who knows, especially later in the season, knows how to capitalize on those mistakes and is able to really make the most of those opportunities. The Gilgronis will not have the luxury of entering half only down by one score after all those mistakes that they made. So I think there is a notch in the armor of this Gilgroni squad that seems to be invincible right now. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they start to drop a few matches here and there, and that's the thing that we're talking about.
It's a marathon, not a sprint. Long season it goes still. So
very true.
Right?
That being said, though, I mean, fantasy relevant players though in this match. I mean, there was a few players here. Connor Mooneyham, he was the big one, 15.1 fantasy points. He scored 2 tries. Ryan Lowrens, he was big too, 6.8 fantasy points on that snipe that he had on that early try of the match there in that Gilgroni's squad. Pretty good overall. I mean, it's I think a lot of information to be taken from that match, not necessarily just from the result, but I think just from watching it overall. So I think a lot to take in there. Rugby New York versus the New England Free Jacks. We basically already went over this match with Co earlier. Rugby New York falling short there. I don't think that it was necessarily indicative of New England necessarily being the better team. I think
but here's the thing.
New England looks good, man.
Watching that game, good. New York was suffocated for majority of the game. That New York team was having trouble in that second half getting out of their half. And New England, using both set piece, using both line speed, they're suffocating that offense and forcing them to have to make big passes, make big plays, crossfield kicks, having to take high balls and make huge plays for them to be able to break the line.
Yeah, I think you actually hit the nail on the head, because when you take away 2 massive plays actually by Cole, right? He breaks it from half or whatever after kind of a misplay, and then that crossfield kick. Those are Hail Mary type plays, I would assume, in rugby.
Yeah.
I think it's these New England Free Jacks, I believe the announcer said it's the youngest starting roster.
Oh, yeah, really?
They have I think they have
so it just seems like they have all this stamina and almost something to prove with that age.
Yeah.
I think they said a bunch of their starters are under 23 years old.
Yeah, no, wow. I mean that's crazy. That's crazy, and they look good. I mean, that's a big game for them to win.
Yep.
And I think that shows that they're clearly a quality side that can show up and beat any team.
Well, I mean, when you have an all-star like Bowden Walker who just seems to show up game in, game out, he almost seems to me like an Adams on Green Bay. Well, even if he doesn't necessarily get the touchdowns or whatever, he's going to get the yards. He's still going to put in the work. Yeah. Like, the guy is just phenomenal.
So Waka's played 4 out of 5 weeks because they had that week 2 bye.
Week 2 bye, yeah.
Out of the 4 out of 5 the 3 out of the 4 fantasy performances, he scored above 14 fantasy points.
That's what I mean. Like, the guy is just
that's crazy.
The Adams of the league, man. It's ridiculous.
And the 1 week that he did not do well, he still put up 3.5. And in our league, 3.5 is still a good number, which I would say is like a consistent number. Yeah, exactly.
Outside of Bowden, Waka, Flocka, Flame, Rugby Morning has both Jack Hyden and Andrew Coe on his team.
Won't start him though. Won't start Jack Hyden though for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jack Hyden's going to continue to be.
Yeah, but did you see his try though? It kind of just fell into his hands and.
Yeah, that is true. But yeah, I think Coe. I was going to say. I think I said it earlier, but Coe is one of the biggest sleepers.
Man, he looks
draft.
like I'm not.
Yeah, he looks good. He looks fast.
He looks good, man.
He's getting opportunities.
He seems like kind of stitched into their play. Like he's looked for by these big names, and I mean that's. Like you say all the time, it's the guy, it's the squeaky wheel that gets the grease, right? It's like these front row guys that just get the ball. Like
Sam Windsor is one of the better kickers in the entire MLR, and when you have him spotting Coe out, that's what I was asking earlier in the show when I was talking about the relationship. I mean, it's just cool to see if you have a fly half and a winger building that relationship. All it took for Coe was for Coe to say, "Hey, look for me on the outside," and you see him now spotting out kicks, 2 games in a row. It's funny.
And like they said, they didn't practice it. Maybe Sam Windsor just comes up and goes, "Hey man, we got to play here. You got
maybe they got to throw in a little bit more practice there, and they'll be even better. And maybe Coe will be on side a little bit more."
Mm-hmm.
But, I think
I'm waiting for
his
the
lesson on the first
Odell
one.
catch in the end zone.
Right? Yeah, there you go. All right, and then last match, I don't think we need to really touch much on this one here, but the San Diego Legion guys taking on Old Glory DC. Biggest thing that I took away from this is basically Old Glory DC is kind of, for me at least, getting into that Dallas category where it looks like every single week, if you're looking for matchups, it's okay, who's playing Dallas, and at this point, who's playing Old Glory DC as well, because it seems like there are going to be fantasy points to be had against this DC team that seems to be struggling so far.
I mean, that's the only reason I picked up Kai Noah Lloyd when Ryberg was out, because I thought, hey, he's starting on the wing against Old Glory DC. He's got to get a chance at some point to score. Yep. And it worked out. Kind of. I mean, I still lost, but you got to try assists, so it's something to take positive out of it.
There we go.
Thomas Moraney had a good game for me too.
Yeah, he did. So yeah, just quickly through the fantasy numbers: William Talataina, 11.6 points; Thomas Moraney, Vandy, 8.8 fantasy points; Renata Roberts Tanana, I know you have him too, Vandy, 8.3 as well. And then some solid pickups as well. Matt Moult, I know he was picked up this past week off of waivers, 6.5 fantasy points this week too. So pretty good over there. Even split between San Diego and DC players making some contributions, but it does look like DC is struggling right now. And we'll see whether or not that continues, because I did not expect that heading into this season. So that was a quick recap. It was the Toronto Arrows who are on bye this round, so no fantasy performances from them. But it was a pretty fun round, guys, and there was a lot of I think games. Cool fantasy implications, and like we said, good games, and also not only learning a lot of information about these teams from a fantasy perspective, but kind of other tidbits like, the Gilgronis committing those penalties, like the Giltinis kind of being fragmented like they are. Just some things to keep in mind going forward for those fantasy strategies. So let's move on here, guys, to the latter portion of the show where we give you guys a little update with how our league is going. And Commissioner Yee's 3 thoughts.
Hear ye, hear ye. Hear ye, hear ye. Hear ye, hear
I love
That's
that.
right.
I love
Hear ye. Commissioner Yee's 3 thoughts on the league. Give you guys a quick little breakdown here of how the league is going. Some tight matchups this week in the official Fantasy Ruckers MLR league. Lads on tour taking on Rugby Morning in a matchup towards the top of the rankings. And boy, oh boy, Rugby Morning just squeaking out a win here by 0.5 fantasy points. And it was largely off the back of, yes, that's right, Andrew Coe, who is able to take carry Rugby Morning to that dub. He moves up the rankings there and in a middle of the table battle between John and Fitz. Dankus Anchors taking on Bing Bong Theory. And man, Dankus Anchors has been crushing it all season long. But the giant has been slain, and Bing Bong Theory is hero in this league, putting up 46.3 fantasy points, the highest of the week, and that's what it's going to take to beat a team like the Dankus Anchors, and he's able to give them their first loss of the season. I'm sure Hokie is not too pleased about that, but we do have a pretty tight now matchup between all these teams now that everyone has at least one loss on the season. And now here we get to the more depressing parts here, guys. Tijuana Hookers taking on our very own Vandy, the Rucking Goat. Not able to get the dub here, guys. Losing by 24 fantasy points. He had Mika Cruz that carried him to 19.3 fantasy points, almost half of his output there. And he had Connor Mooneyham on the bench as well. Didn't even need that to take down the Rucking Goat. Sorry, Vandy. You're going to have to look to get back in the win column next week. And then the long season continues for Ruck and Roll. He falls once again to Victoria's Secret, 29.6 to 14.5. And he was the victim of that pretty intense Bowden Waka performance, who put up a whopping 24.8 fantasy points. That was 24.8 of the 29.6 total points.
I've gotten over 20 points once.
Crazy. Well, that is our matchups of this week. The league standings will be updated and then distributed in our Discord channel and on Reddit, so you'll be able to check that out. But man, it was some tight matchups there. And just some last thoughts here, guys, as I wrap up this segment here. A couple of things that I want to mention to our league members. The first thing here is, guys, I'm going to re-mention that there is consideration here in terms of rule proposals. Let me know what you guys think in terms of this minutes bonus. It has been one of the more difficult things tracking the 70 minutes plus and 80 minutes plus bonus points. So in order to kind of streamline that and maybe make it easier, I'm thinking if it would be beneficial to maybe switch that to a complete game play to incomplete game bonuses. So you'll get a full point if they play the full 80, and then you won't get any bonus if they get subbed out. It would just make it maybe a little bit more I guess final and not as kind of iffy from a week to week basis, but that's something to have in a conversation in the league. And then also something here is just a reminder for members about the IR. This is going to be more based on the honor system. I know some of you have been using the IR slots up to this point. Just message me, guys, of a guy who you believe should be placed or can be placed on the IR. Just let me know the games that he's been out for, if there's been an injury announcement, and then I will make the decision on whether or not that player is eligible for the IR and then can move into that spots. I know some players have been, or some teams have been able to do that. So if you had questions regarding that, that's basically how to go about it until we can kind of finalize a more definitive IR process. That's how we'll do it for now. But with that being said, that is the commissioner's thoughts for post round 5 talk. But it's been great so far, guys. Everyone who's been in the league and also everyone who's been following along, been getting a lot of support from the Discord community, been getting a lot of support from the Reddit community, and all of our other social media channels. So thank you to all of that. And if you're just getting into this, follow along. It's been a lot of fun trying to navigate this fantasy MLR landscape. There's been challenges. There's been a lot of good times and exciting times and funny times. But I think it's just been a great project overall so far. And we're only a third way through.
For those of you that are maybe new and watching this as the first episode, just remember, if you see the post that says I'm in last place, I've never watched rugby before. I'm new to this, and
you're the in-house new. Vandy's actually the guy that's been the expert
that
all
is,
this.
Give me those rugby jerseys, boy.
If you're
there we
new,
go.
That's how it is, and just don't listen to anybody
What
else.
size are they, child?
There we go. There we go. All right. Well, let's move on here, guys, quickly, because we are running out of time. Ran a little bit long with that Andrew Coe interview. So let's wrap up the end of the show a little bit more quicker here. Let's quickly review the round 6 waiver wire on guys who are available heading into round 6. I know some guys are still trying to figure out their rosters. I know some guys are getting a little bit more skittish of those players that they drafted. Before I start to announce some of these guys that are available, what are your thoughts, guys, about the guys that aren't performing? You jumping ship now? We're about a third way in. What's your strategy heading in now? I know a few weeks back there was a little bit more patience with some of those guys that aren't performing. Is it that same thought heading into round 6?
I mean, I'm at this point, I think my strategy is trusting in the guys that I have. I mean, I'm 1-3. I really can't go any worse. So we'll just stay here at last place and see how we move.
Unwavering faith. I'm with Matt on that one. There's a couple guys that can get out of here. Coatsy, you did nothing, bud. Chad Go, you did nothing, bud. I'm not saying who I'm picking up, but look.
It's just another round. So from what I got here, guys, and this is starting to get a little bit depressing here with this waiver wire segment.
You're telling us
all it is just hearing your guys' call. Oh, last week's players didn't work. This is who I thought it was going to be. They're going to get me the dub. And it's just a constant up and down every week. It's Wednesdays. I got my guys. I'm looking good, feeling good. And then the show comes around and not feeling
I feel like
so
that's
good.
Fantasy. That's just
that's
That's
fantasy. And, it just so happens when we pick up those guys, we think are guys. They turn out to not be guys. And that's all right.
I look at, look how many points he's got. He got to put up at least one.
No, you need the.
What I will say is I'll be shipping out my DC Jackal set piece as quick as I can and picking up one of those that are in free agency as quick as I can because I am running away from that DC team. I see that there's two
or Holden Yogurt. However that's your name. I need a scrum half here, boys.
There we go. All right.
Hey,
that's all the insights. That's the inside scoop you're gonna get. You're gonna get Matt's dropping his crappy Dallas Jackals defense. So if anyone wants that, they can get those slim pickings. And Vandy wants a scrum half. So if anyone wants to trade him one, there was a trade that was trying to get cooked up. I know Rugby Morning was trying to get a little bit of a piece of what was it? I think it was Poland, right, for Tom Brusati. I think it was a joke because Hokie wasn't having any of it because Tom Brusati is. You're not trading that, but
Hokie's
it would be nice to start seeing
game.
some trade talks going.
Yeah, no, but what I'll say for waiver wise, I mean. There's two Dallas guys that are at the top of, at least from last week's point scoring, that are in free agency. I personally would not touch them. I don't trust them. I'm not trusting any of the Dallas.
So the last place guy wouldn't touch him, eh?
Yeah, the last place guy wouldn't touch him. So hey, do what you want to do with that. but what I would say, there's a few guys that I'm looking at, and maybe they weren't at the top of the points, but come on, Vandy, come on.
Well, okay. All I'll say is I'm going to name out a few names here.
All right. You don't want to hear my picks because you guys don't want them anyways.
You want my picks? You don't even want my team.
We've gotten off the rails here, boys. It's the bottom of the barrel. This was not the way it was supposed to go.
Yeah, on paper, Ryan, when I signed up, this is supposed to be more enjoyable.
You on my way to last place? Come on to last place.
These guys.
We wanted to do better. Hey, believe me, we wanted to do better for you, but
you want to succeed in this league, do the opposite of what I say, basically.
Oh, God, you gotta love it.
Well, it is funny how the tables have turned. We're heading into this project. You guys were supposed to be the
I
guys
came in way too
bold.
The guys people were supposed to be turning
to
for the advice.
Now. I got to think, if my gut says to pick them up, don't pick them up.
It's your own reverse psychology.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, some names to talk about. I'm just gonna go quickly over it.
Name the Dallas guys.
And then we'll use the Matthew barometer on whether or not he thinks these guys are good or not, or worthy of pickup. But we got Nick Feeks, Harry Barlow, Ned Hodgson, Austin White, Ryan Mattias. along some of the names. So make sure to check our Discord
single
channel,
jackal.
Discord channel, and on the Reddit page for the top rankings, for the full ranking sheet, and also the waiver wire cheat sheet that our league members will use. That will be posted in our Discord channel as well. The link to join that is on in the description of our YouTube video and also in the podcast, as well as on those weekly Reddit posts. You're going to be able to join the Discord community through that as well, where you can talk rugby with the Fantasy Ruckers community members and talk a little bit about fantasy rugby to keep the conversation going. So with that being said, let's talk about these round 5 matchups to wrap up this show, guys. I'm just going to list out all these matchups. There are some really exciting ones, kind of like last week. Let's just talk about the one you're looking most excited for, and I guess if there's any players in that match that you're looking out for to hopefully get you guys a win this week, because man, I will tell you, dude, it is tough. It is tough every week to be stabbing out your lineup.
You know what this feels like? Preparing for disappointment. Yeah.
Because it's funny, because sometimes there was this week especially, right? I was statting them out. And I go game by game, so it's not necessarily in order. And sometimes I'll see you two winning, and I'll be like, oh crap, they're gonna come out with the dub. They're up like they're
Hey,
up
here's
by
an
like,
idea. Don't scout the San Diego game first, and I'll never be winning.
I'm up by
There we go.
14-0, and the other guy doesn't have any.
Yeah, it was
any of the
literally-
other guy's points yet.
So yeah, it is funny to see that. But guys, Rugby Atlanta is taking on the Gilgronis in round 6. That's a pretty top matchup. You got
That'd be a good
basically the
match.
leaders of the East taking on the still only undefeated team in the MLR. We got the Rugby New York squad taking on San Diego Legion. Those two teams are
That'd be a
looking
good
really
game.
good. Each of them only have 1 loss on the season. I think those are the 2 matchups that I'm most looking forward to, but you also got the Free Jacks taking on the Arrows,
Giltinis.
the Sabercats taking on the Seawolves, Jackals taking on the Gold, and then yes, you got the Giltinis taking on the Warriors. I think that will be an interesting match too, because I think if the Warriors can come out with a win in that one, a big statement win like they were able to against Dallas on a Giltinis team that who knows what lineup they're going to be putting out in round 5. If they can put up some numbers against them, I'll be a little bit more confident with Vandy's Warriors. But guys, what are you guys looking forward to?
The other side, I mean, Giltinis lose. If Giltinis lose to the Warriors, who have had their struggles, but it seemed to be, after one big win, maybe their confidence is up. That'll say something about the Giltinis and maybe reaffirm our thoughts right now that this team is struggling and they need guys coming back from injury and they need to get in a role of some sort.
The other guys, they're picking it up.
Yeah. So we'll see whether or not the Gilgronis stay undefeated there. Whether or not what I was saying earlier on the show kind of seeps through against a stronger Rugby Atlanta side. I think it's going to be the strongest side that the Gilgronis faced up to the season. To Matthew's point, we'll see what the Giltinis do against the Warriors. And Vandy, I guess that's a perfect segue into your hot mic segment here, to tell your Warriors how they're supposed to keep it up this week, because this speech that you had worked for at least the real rugby team, not so much for your fantasy rugby team, but for the real rugby team this past week. So maybe some words of wisdom from you will work again. What do you have to say for your boys heading into this week against a pretty or what should have been a pretty strong Giltini squad?
Well, boys, I mean, this is the week. This is the week we prove how good we are. Week 1, tight matchup, lost it, whatever. Week 2, same thing, tight matchup, lost it. Week 3, not so good. Okay? Came out round 5, smoked them. Okay, Saunders, buddy, you keep playing like that, we'll win every game here on out. Mike Tail, you're looking good, you're looking fast, you're looking big, my man. And, yeah, I mean, I want to side note this, and I want to wish my son, who's going to be 2 years old tomorrow, a happy birthday. I probably
Hey.
but happy birthday, little man. And Utah, go out there and win one for my kid, eh?
Hey, there we go.
There we go.
Happy birthday to Louis. So I think, you know what, they have to now put up a big dub. If they don't, I think your fandomship might have to be on the line here. If they don't put up a dub against the Giltinis, you put up Louis.
I've been a
Louis,
Colorado
though, he's got to
fan
do it for Louis.
I've been a Colorado fan for like 25 years, man. You think We suck
we
so
go.
bad. If I'm used to losing at this point.
Hey,
I will
Vandy, I
say.
think maybe you need to put some of that speech energy toward our 2 fantasy teams. Maybe that'll help us out.
If I could sit Joe Peterson down and just be like, man, you are my everything. You are basically a god to my squad. If you don't put up 15 week in and week out, I don't even have a chance. Okay? Bjorn, just do it, buddy. Just be you. Hey, just get him in there.
Well, hey, here's to hoping your boys, your fantasy team, both you, Matt, and Vandy, are able to put up a little few more numbers here in round 6. But until then, we're gonna have to wait and see whether or not you guys will be able to
Will
get
I
back
score
in the
more
win
than
column.
15
But
points this week?
who knows? You'll have to tune
Hey,
into.
listen. My guys put up numbers all the time. They just happen to be zeros.
And you know what? Zeros don't take you far in fantasy, but you know what?
Or in
I'm
life.
sure those zeros
life.
are going to turn into something nice soon. And we'll hope it comes here in round 6. But for Matt, for Vandy, thank you so much for everyone tuning in. We will see you next episode. Have fun and enjoy round 6 of Major League Rugby.
You've been listening to the Fantasy Ruckers Show, bringing fantasy rugby to the masses, covering everything rugby from the MLR and beyond. We hope you enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and be sure to tell all your friends. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, connect with us on social media at the Fantasy Ruckers. Till next time, this is the Fantasy Ruckers Show, signing off.